The buzz of my phone is a shard of glass straight to the nervous system. It's not a ringtone anymore. It's a cardiac event. Every vibration is a sudden, painful constriction in my chest, a jolt of pure, undiluted adrenaline that leaves my fingers tingling and my breath caught somewhere high in my throat. It's been 6 months, 2 weeks and 4 days since my daughter, Emily, looked me in the eye and dismantled my world with a quiet, devastating certainty. 6 months, 2 weeks, and 4 days since the name on the screen transformed from a beacon of light into a verdict I am forever waiting to hear. This time, it's a text. The preview lights up the dark of my living room where I sit in the same armchair that still holds the ghost of her weight from when she'd curl up with a book. Emily, got an A on my midterm. Hope you're well. The words are clean, polite, sterile. They're the kind of update you'd send to distant relative. There is no dad, no exclamation point, no shared joy, just a transaction of information. Hope you're well. It's the emotional equivalent of a hall light left on for a guest you don't particularly like. My thumbs hover over the screen, 1,000 responses warring in my head. I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. I miss you. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. What comes out is, "That's fantastic, Em. So proud. Talk soon?" I put the phone face down on the side table. The silence it leaves behind is louder than the buzz. It's a physical presence in this house, a hollow echo that has taken up residence in the space she used to fill. This is my life now. A 48-year-old man, jumping at text messages, living on a diet of polite nothings and brutal memory. I thought I was building a fortress to protect her. I never realized I was constructing her prison, and in the process, I became the warden of my own.
It wasn't always this way. After Marianne left, it was just the two of us. Emily was 12, a quiet storm of confusion and hurt. Her small world fractured. I remember the sheer, pants-wetting terror of it. Me, a man who'd barely mastered boiling pasta, suddenly responsible for a preteen girl's entire universe. I learned about hair that wasn't mine, about the mysterious ecosystem of a middle school girl's backpack, about the profound, sacred trust of a late-night talk. Our ritual was the laundry room. On Sunday nights, we'd sort the week's clothes, the rumble of the washer a steady bass note to our conversations. The warm, clean scent of detergent would fill the air, and in that safe, mundane space, she would talk. It started small. A girl who'd been mean to her in gym, a teacher she thought was unfair. Then, as the years bled on, it deepened. Boys. The terrifying, thrilling frontier of high school. Her fears about college, about the future, about whether her mother's leaving was a blueprint for every relationship she'd ever have. "I'll never leave you, Bug," I'd tell her, using the old childhood nickname. "You're stuck with me." She'd smile, a little watery, and lean her head against my shoulder. "I know, Dad." I lived for those moments. They were the proof I wasn't failing, the evidence that my love was a sufficient anchor in the chaos of her life. I convinced myself our closeness was a triumph. I see now it was a dependency I fostered, a cord I was secretly terrified to cut.
The cord was severed, professionally and cleanly, The day I helped her move into her dorm. The campus was a riot of youthful energy and parental anxiety. Kids shouting, doors propped open, a labyrinth of identical hallways smelling of fresh paint and cheap carpet. Emily's room was a small square of possibility. She vibrated with an excitement so potent it was almost a sound. She was already pulling away, her eyes darting to the hallway, to the new voices, to a life that categorically did not include me. "You'll call?" I asked, the words sounding pathetic even to my own ears as I set her duffel bag on the stark, institutional bed. "Of course, Dad, every night," she promised, hugging me tightly, but it was the quick, efficient hug of someone with places to be. I drove away from campus that day, feeling like I'd left a vital organ behind. The house was quieter than it had ever been. The silence after Marianne left was a noisy, angry thing. This new silence was a void. I told myself I was fine. I was proud. This was the goal, wasn't it? To raise a strong, independent woman. I repeated it like a mantra, but the words were hollow, eaten from the inside by a gnawing, possessive fear. At first, she kept her promise. The calls came every evening, a lifeline. Her voice was a burst of static and laughter, filled with names I didn't know. Chloe from her coding class, Mark, her obnoxious but funny floor mate. I'd cling to the phone, my knuckles white, drinking in every detail, trying to piece together the mosaic of her new existence. But the calls began to space out. Every other night, then once a week. The excuses were always valid, always reasonable. A study group, a movie night. She was living, and I was becoming a relic. That's when the digital haunting began. It started innocently enough. A check of her Instagram, a scroll through her Twitter, just to see her face. But it quickly curdled into something darker, more compulsive. It became my nightly ritual. A glass of whiskey in one hand, my phone in the other, diving into the bright, curated world of her online life. I was an archaeologist of her happiness, and every new artifact I unearthed felt like a personal slight. And then I found him. Ryan. He first appeared in the background of a group photo. A guy with a guitar and a knowing smile. Then he was in more. At a coffee shop, at a campus concert. He was older, mid-20s. He had the kind of careless, scruffy good looks that seemed designed to infuriate fathers. Tattoos snaked up his arms, a leather jacket was perpetually slung over his shoulder. He was the musician type, the poet, the charmer. He was me. Not the me of now, with my receding hairline and my sensible sedan, but the me I used to be at 24, reckless, self-absorbed, charming as hell, and just as toxic. I remembered the girls I'd dated, the casual cruelties I'd inflicted in the name of living my life. I remembered the way I'd treated their hearts like temporary amusements. Seeing Ryan was like staring into a funhouse mirror of my own misspent youth, and the reflection was a monster I was determined to keep away from my daughter. I finally worked up the nerve to ask about him during one of our weekly calls. "So, who's this Ryan guy? He's in a lot of your photos." There was a beat of silence on the other end, a tiny, telling hesitation. "He's just a friend, Dad." The lie was a physical thing, a cold stone dropping into my gut. It wasn't what she said, but how she said it. There was a lightness, a protective quality in her tone I'd never heard her use about anyone else. It was the tone she used to reserve for our secrets in the laundry room, and she was using it to shield him from me. That was the moment the fear truly took root. It was no longer a vague anxiety about her growing up. It was a specific, targeted terror. He had her. This ghost of my past, this walking cliché of a boy, had his hooks in my little girl, and he was pulling her away from me, into a world where I held no sway, no protection. I was no longer just watching. I was at war, and I was about to become the very thing I swore I'd protect her from. The persona I created was named Alex, a bland, harmless name. Alex had a generic profile picture, a silhouette against a sunset, and a handful of followers to seem legitimate. My hands were slick with sweat as I sent the follow requests. To Emily, to Ryan, to his bandmates. This was a line, I knew. A chasm I was leaping across, but I framed it in my mind as a necessary reconnaissance. I was gathering intelligence to protect my child. From my armchair fortress, I watched their digital lives unfold. Ryan's world was a performance of cool indifference. Photos of him on stage, bathed in moody light. Quotes from Bukowski and Kerouac. It was a carefully constructed facade of depth, and I saw right through it, because I had built the same one once. Emily's presence in his feed was subtle, but it was there. A comment from her under a photo of his. This one's my favorite. His reply, "For you, always." It made me feel sick. Then I saw the story. It was a fleeting video, gone in 24 hours, but I captured it, a digital trophy of my own paranoia. It was taken in a dimly lit apartment, all exposed brick and fairy lights. Ryan was behind the camera, his voice a low murmur. "Hey, you!" The camera panned to Emily. She was curled on a sofa, a red plastic cup in her hand, laughing at something he'd said just off screen. Her face was illuminated with a pure, unguarded joy. It was the kind of happiness that is completely surrendered, the kind that makes you vulnerable. Too happy. The thought was a venomous whisper in my ear. She looked the way she had when she was 10, and I'd surprised her with a puppy. That level of joy should be reserved for safe things, for childhood things, not for some tattooed poser in a grimy apartment. My mind, now a well-oiled machine of worst-case scenarios, began to whir. That cup, what was in it? She was 20, but the drinking age was 21. He was older. He was responsible. I told myself I was being a father, a protector. The word became a shield I hid behind, polishing it until it blinded me to what I was becoming. I opened a direct message with Ryan's account. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. I was Alex, a friend of a friend, just curious. Alex, "Hey man, saw your set at the basement. Killer stuff." Ryan, "Thanks dude, appreciate it." We traded a few more vapid pleasantries. The digital scent of cheap beer and cigarette smoke seemed to emanate from my phone. I steered the conversation. Alex, "That girl you're always with, Emily? She's cute. You two a thing?" His reply came a few minutes later. I can still see the words burned onto my retina. Ryan, "She's sweet, man. Really sweet. But naive, you know? Sheltered. I'm just helping her loosen up a little. Show her there's more to life than textbooks." I saw red. A literal pulsing haze of it descended over my vision. My breath came in short, ragged gasps. Naive, sheltered, loosen up. They weren't just words, they were a confession. They were the lexicon of predators. He was talking about my little girl, the one I'd raised, the one whose science projects I'd painstakingly helped glue together, as if she were a project for him. He saw himself as her educator in the ways of the world, a world I knew was full of men exactly like him, men who saw innocence not as something to cherish, but as something to conquer. The rage was pure, white-hot, and utterly self-righteous. It erased all doubt, all morality. It was the fury of a God whose creation was being defiled. I was no longer a man making a choice. I was an instrument of karmic justice. That night the house was a tomb. The only sounds were the frantic clicking of my mouse and the whir of the printer. I compiled my evidence with the cold efficiency of a bomb maker. Screenshots of the video, of his comment. I wrote an anonymous email to the university's housing office and the campus security department. My words were clipped, official, dripping with feigned concern. I reported one Ryan M. for repeatedly providing alcohol to underage residents in his on-campus apartment, citing a worrying pattern of behavior that put vulnerable students at risk. I painted him as a predator and framed my actions as a civic duty. I hit send. The whoosh of the email leaving my outbox felt like the closing of a vault. A strange, sickening calm settled over me. It was done. I had thrown the lever. I had saved her.
For a week, there was nothing. The silence was agonizing. I checked the local campus news feed obsessively. I refreshed my email, half expecting, half dreading a response. My conviction began to waver, the rage cooling into a dull, leaden anxiety. Had I been too hasty? Had I misread everything? Then the call came. It was a Thursday evening. The phone rang, and her name flashed on the screen. For a glorious, foolish second, my heart leapt. She was calling. Everything was fine. I answered. "Hey, Bug." The sound that came through the speaker was not my daughter's voice. It was a raw, broken thing, shredded by sobs. It was the sound of a world ending. "Dad?" she choked out. I could hear her struggling to breathe. Something awful happened." My own breath froze in my lungs. The lead in my stomach turned to ice. "What is it, baby? What's wrong?" It's Ryan. Campus security. They came to his apartment last night. Someone sent them screenshots of us. They said he was giving alcohol to minors. They questioned him for hours." Every word was a nail being driven into my soul. I had to play my part. Screenshots? What screenshots? What are you talking about? I don't know. Some anonymous person. The tears were winning, her voice becoming a high, desperate wail. He didn't get expelled, but they revoked his housing privileges. He has to move out of the dorms. Everyone on his floor thinks I did it. They think I'm the one who reported him. They're calling me a snitch, a liar. The plan, in my arrogant, feverish mind, had been clean. Remove the threat. She would be sad. Then she would see he was no good, and she would come back to me. I never considered the collateral damage. I never considered her social annihilation. I had been so focused on saving her from him, I hadn't considered what I was throwing her to. "Honey," I said, my voice tight, the words tasting like ash, Maybe
Maybe it's for the best if he was getting you into situations like that. The silence on the other end was absolute. It was more terrifying than the crying. "For the best?" she whispered, her voice suddenly cold and clear, a shard of glass. "My friend's life is turned upside down. Everyone I know thinks I'm a traitor, and you think it's for the best?" Click. The dial tone was a flat line. I stood there, in the middle of my living room, the phone pressed to my ear, listening to the sound of my own heart stopping. The silence that followed was different from all the silences that had come before. This one was final. This one had judgment in it.
The 2 months that followed were a masterclass in purgatory. My texts to her were met with one-word replies. Okay, thanks, sure. My calls went straight to voicemail. The house wasn't just quiet, it was dead. I was a ghost, haunting the scenes of a life that was no longer mine. I tried to justify it, to cling to the tattered remains of my righteousness. I did it for you. I was protecting you. But the mantra had rotted. It now sounded like what it was, the pathetic plea of a guilty man. When she finally agreed to come home for the winter holidays, a fragile, stupid hope bloomed in my chest. Time, I thought. Time would heal this. She would see I acted out of love. I cleaned the house obsessively. I bought her favorite foods. I prepared for a reunion, for forgiveness. The woman who stepped out of the car was not my Emily. My Emily had light in her eyes, a ready smile, a posture that was loose and open. This woman was closed. Her hair was different. Her clothes were darker. She held herself with a stillness that was unnerving. She was 20, but she looked like she had aged a decade in a few months. The vivaciousness, the spark of life that Ryan's video had captured and that I had sought to extinguish was gone. In its place was a quiet, profound sorrow. Dinner was a surreal pantomime of our old life. The table was set, the food was the same, but the conversation was a minefield of polite, shallow topics. The weather, her classes. She offered nothing more. I filled the silence with a frantic, nervous chatter that echoed in the space between us. After we cleared the plates, she didn't go to the living room. She stood by the sink, her back to me, and looked out the window into the dark yard. "We need to talk, Dad." My blood went cold, the formality in her tone. The way she didn't call me Dad with any warmth, but as a title. "Of course, honey, anything." She turned around. She didn't look angry. She looked resolved. The grief was still there, but it had been forged into something harder, sharper. "I know it was you," she said. The floor dropped out from under me. The air vanished from the room. My stomach didn't just drop, it plummeted through the foundation of the house. All the rehearsed denials, all the pathetic excuses died in my throat. What? I don't, she said, her voice quiet but absolute. It cut through my stammering like a scalpel. Just don't. I'm not asking. I'm telling you. She took a slow breath, her eyes never leaving mine. They were my eyes, I realized, with a fresh wave of horror.
the same shade of hazel, but where mine were pleading, desperate, hers were clear and cold with truth. After it happened, after he stopped talking to me, I couldn't understand it. Who would do that? Who would have those screenshots? She paused, letting the weight of the question hang in the air. I'm a computer science major, Dad. You paid for the classes, remember?
A sick, dawning comprehension began to break over me. I had been so careful, but I had been an amateur playing against a future professional. She logged into my Instagram account and pulled the access logs. It shows every device, every IP address that has ever accessed the account. Her voice was flat, analytical, as if she were walking me through a line of code. There was my phone, my laptop, the campus library computer I used once, and then there was another one, a device registered to an Alex Carter. The IP address was traced to a server cluster often used for VPNs to mask location. She took a step toward me. I couldn't move. I was pinned in place by her gaze. But Alex also slipped up once, about 3 months ago. The VPN failed for a single login. Just one. She let the silence stretch, letting me absorb the magnitude of my one catastrophic mistake. That one login originated from this house, from our home Wi-Fi network. There was no fight left in me. The fortress lay in ruins. She had dismantled it brick by digital brick. You made a fake account, she continued, her voice beginning to quaver with the first hint of emotion, a tremor of pure, undiluted pain. You stopped my life, you spied on my friend, and then you destroyed him. You destroyed us. And you made it look like I did it. Tears were welling in her eyes now, but they weren't the broken, lost tears from the phone call. These were tears of furious, righteous grief. "All those talks in the laundry room," she whispered, her voice cracking. "All those times you told me I could trust you with anything, that you would always be in my corner. It was all a lie. The second I had a part of my life you didn't control, the second I loved something you didn't choose for me, you became this. You became the monster. Emily, I was just trying to protect you," I choked out. The words so feeble, so worthless, I wanted to snatch them back from the air. "Protect me?" The words were a whip crack. "You didn't protect me. You humiliated me. You took my trust, my friendship, my reputation, and you burned it all down because you were scared. Because you couldn't handle the fact that I didn't need you to hold my hand anymore." She was crying fully now, the tears carving paths through the mask of her composure. "You were so afraid of me meeting a man like the one you used to be, that you became something so much worse. The man you used to be would have broken my heart. But you broke me. You broke us." She walked to the hallway, where her packed bag already waited by the door. She knew how this would end before she even stepped inside. "I'm going to stay with Mom," she said, picking up the bag. "Don't call me. I'll text you to let you know I'm okay. But we're not this anymore." She opened the door, and a gust of cold winter air swept into the warm house, a chilling finality. "Goodbye, Dad." The door clicked shut. Not a slam, a click. Soft,
precise, and utterly irrevocable. I stood alone in the silence of the home I had destroyed, the architect of my own emptiness. I thought I was saving her from a ghost, but the only monster in the story was the one staring back at me from the dark reflection in the window. So now I wait. I live my life in the space between buzzes. Every text is a tremor, a potential aftershock of the earthquake I caused. Sometimes, like today, it's a polite update. Sometimes it's a photo of her cat, a crumb from the table of the life she's building without me. I devour these crumbs, these polite nothings, and I am grateful for them. They are the proof she hasn't completely erased me. But they are also a life sentence. They are a constant reminder of the line I crossed, the trust I incinerated on the pyre of my own fear and ego. I thought I was saving her from a boy who would use her naivete against her, but I was the one who weaponized her trust. I was the one who saw her innocence as a problem to be solved. The karma is not dramatic. There is no public shaming, no financial ruin. The karma is this silence. It is the hollowed-out shell of my home. It is the memory of her face, not angry, but profoundly disappointed. It is the knowledge that the person I loved most in this world now sees me as a cautionary tale, a figure of control and betrayal. I became the exact man I never wanted her to fear. And the cruelest justice of all is that I have to live with him in the deafening quiet forever.